Hey there, what is up, you guys? We're here today to talk about the 2025 film, The Smashing Machine. Now, this film has been nominated for an Oscar. I believe the Oscars are what, March? This is a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson film, and you guys probably know about how I feel about this and how many people do by now. You know, The Rock pretty much plays the same character every movie. He switches it up in this movie, and I'm an MMA fan, so automatically this movie takes my interest. It is a movie about the UFC fighter Mark Kerr. He's one of the pioneers in the sport. Fought in Pride, FC, and UFC. Did he fight in Strike Force? I'm not sure. But this is based off of the 2002 documentary, The Smashing Machine. And I've heard it's pretty much very similar to that movie. This movie stars Emily Blunt also playing Mark Kerr's wife, Dawn. And I thought the cast did a good job. I thought The Rock actually did a pretty good job. I thought Emily Blunt did a good job playing her character. And this movie, I gave it, I think, 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. I wanted to give it a 4, but I feel like the movie could have had a little bit more of a compelling script, but everyone did a good job. This was a good film. I'll definitely watch it again. Maybe I won't pick it up on Blu-ray, to be honest. Now, I watched this movie. I was pretty much into it the whole time. I wasn't really bored. There was a couple times, where it dragged a little bit. And you can obviously tell it's The Rock, not from the first glimpse, but, after knowing that he's the one playing the role, it's not hard to tell. His voice, just everything about him, his expressions. But this is a great film. It's basically about Mark Kerr, his struggles, him being married or him being in a committed relationship. They ended up actually having a son and being married for 6 years, but then they got divorced in 2009 or some shit like that. No, 2006, my bad. And yeah, it was a good story. I think that they could have maybe done a little bit less with the painkiller thing. It's a little kind of traumatic for some people to watch, but it is what it is. I know it had to be hard for Mark Kerr to watch this on the big screen. I couldn't imagine having to just sit there and watch your struggles be played out in front of everyone, watching on the screen like that. I really enjoyed this film. I thought the makeup was great. They did a great job, honestly. He looked very similar to the actual Mark Kerr fighter, so yeah, he did a great job. You got to think in the Smashing Machine because he would smash multiple people, just in one night. And this movie doesn't end on like a happy note. I mean, it kind of does, but like he doesn't win, So the movie, ends with this tournament. The winner gets a $200,000, grand prize, and he's gonna fight his best friend Mark Coleman if he, wins. He won his first fight. If he wins his second fight, then he does. But he did not win that fight. And that guy actually ended up getting injured. And then Mark Coleman had to face someone else. But it's a very, sad story at times. We've kind of seen this story play out on the big screen a few times, with painkiller, drug addiction, things like that. I'm a big fan of the movie Walk the Line. We got to see that on there. I'm not the biggest fan of watching, painkiller addictions and things like that on the screen. It's just not something I'm interested in seeing. I don't know. It's just, I don't like seeing that kind of thing. I didn't really care for it in Walk the Line either. This Diet Coke's hitting. But anyways, The Smashing Machine was a pretty good movie. I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. It's very, the pacing is very good. I think it does a good job. It's like 2 hours and 4-minute runtime. And I heard this movie didn't do well. I heard it actually bombed in the box office, which The Rock already said, that he needed to do this movie, for more of like a serious performance. Obviously it worked. He's getting an Oscar nomination for it. But it's just not the typical Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson film, which is a good thing, actually. So I think anyone can watch this movie. You don't necessarily just have to be an MMA fan to watch this movie. Anyone can watch this movie. And watching this makes me really miss the day. It makes me miss Pride. Like, I think Pride was just so much superior to UFC in so many ways. But unfortunately, after 2007, they got bought out and whatnot. So, yeah, we won't see that anymore. But, it was a good story, seeing kind of some of his struggles play out on the screen in his marriage as well. There was a pretty intense scene at the end where she tries to off herself and puts a gun to her head, and then he just calms her down. It was I know that has to be somewhat traumatic for him, like I said, to watch on the screen. And we actually got to see the real Mark Kerr, shopping in a grocery store at the end. And it's crazy how similar they actually look. It really is. And there's also a scene where his trainer or whatnot, it's like having some sort of tendon problem, like he's in a lot of pain. He just goes and sticks a needle in him. Like, there's just a lot of drug usage in the movie, which, I don't got thin skin. I've seen shit like that play out a lot more than anyone knows. But, that is what kind of movie it is, because, fighters deal with a lot of painkiller problems and things of that sort. So it's not a surprise to see that kind of thing in the movie. But what do I think about the movie? I think it was a good movie. I think the script could have been a little bit more compelling, maybe. It kind of felt like they were just hitting the notes throughout it, like the main plot points, the story. You kind of seen where the story was going before it even ended. But some of the most entertaining parts of the movie, to me, were watching Mark Kerr and his wife interact. I thought that was probably the most entertaining parts of the movie. The actual fighting, it's whatever. I'm not the biggest fan of combat sports movies. I don't know why. Like, I'm a fan of mixed martial arts. I'm a fan somewhat of boxing. I'm mainly paid attention to the bigger fights with boxing, but I'm a fan of mixed martial arts especially. But, the fighting, I'm just not a big fan of watching, scripted fighting on TV. If it's not, obviously wrestling's cool. But, Rocky was a good movie. Rocky was good. I loved the Rocky movies, actually. The Creed movies were okay. The first one was all right. Creed 3 was good. I didn't like the second one. But would I watch this movie again? I probably would. There was a lot of aspects to this movie I liked. Mark Kerr had some redeemable qualities to him. He also had some bad qualities to him, obviously. But, that's just what it is. I think it really, puts his life and his story into the spotlight, and I think that's good for him. And it's also good for MMA in a lot of ways. Movies like this coming out. But yeah, the most entertaining parts were just him interacting with his wife. I thought that those were like the most, there's a part where she was like, "Oh, you'd make a great father." He wasn't ready to be a father. There was a part where, she makes him a shake, and then he's like, "Oh, I switched to whole milk," but she put skim milk in it. But yeah, it was a very cool movie. I would watch this movie again. I'd probably own it on Blu-ray, to be honest. I do like this movie. I don't know why so many people shit on it. I think just because it's The Rock, they do. I don't think that's a valid reason for you to not like a movie just because The Rock's in it, but it is what it is, guys. Go check out The Smashing Machine. I enjoyed the movie. I gave it 3.5 stars. Close to it could have been 4 had it had just a little bit more of a compelling story. It almost felt like they were just trying to hit the plot points through it. That's what it almost felt like to me. They were hitting the plot points, and there was a lot of like missing things. It felt like in between, like a lot of plot holes that they could have added something in. But, to me, it was a good film. I enjoyed The Smashing Machine. What did you guys think down below? Let me know. I'm going to give The Smashing Machine, I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I'd probably give this movie about a 7 out of 10 is what I'm feeling. What do you guys think of The Smashing Machine? Let me know down below. I thought it was a pretty good film. So, yeah, I would definitely check this film out again. I don't know if it's something I could watch more than once a year, maybe. I could probably watch this again in a year or so, but it's a good film. Go check it out. It wasn't bad at all. I thought it was good. Go check out The Smashing Machine, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Sub, like, turn on the notifications. Peace out, guys.